Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Still in season 2 of Cinemacast. I'm your host, Mike C. Guys, before we get into today's feature, be sure to hit that like, subscribe button down below if you guys enjoy our podcast, if you enjoy our content. Also, if you guys are into gaming, if you want to check out our gaming streams, follow us on Twitch and Kick. Links are down below. If you guys want to keep up to date with anything we're doing with the channel, anything at all, updates, all that good stuff, follow us on Twitter. Link for that is down below. And if you are on Discord, if you guys want to follow us on Discord for much more than what's on Twitter, click the link down below. Join us on Discord today. So, the next episode, today's feature. This is a doozy. This is a real doozy. This is a movie that has a 97% consensus rating from the critics. This is a movie that so far I've watched once, maybe twice. By the time this episode has aired, I'll probably watch it a second time. Because this movie is that good. And you have to be one of those fans of the found footage genre when it comes to horror. Because that's basically what this is. This is a supernatural horror film that is found footage based. And as you could tell by the movie poster, yes, it definitely has that 1970s theme to it. And there's quite a few movies that have been coming out here lately, whether it's been in theaters or on any streaming platforms like Netflix or Hulu, and just the overall theme and tone of a show or a movie nowadays that has the 70s theme, I like that. I really do. It's like, even though it's a modern movie or TV show, but to give it that nostalgic throwback. And a lot of movies and shows, they do it pretty well. They do it very well with, the different props from the time. Like, you could watch a movie that has one of those old school tube TVs, something that kids today would be like, what is that, mommy? What is that, grandma? Oh, that's what we used to watch TV. That's a television. That's what we used to watch back in the day. Back in the 1970s and 80s, we didn't have these 55, 65, 75, 85-inch flat screen LED TVs that are smart TVs that come with the fucking Netflix and the Hulu apps built in, or in my case, having a couple of them that were cheap brands where the power supply burns out inside of it, or the LED lights burn out and you got to take the TV apart and replace them, that kind of thing. No. We're talking about tube TVs from back in the day. That, if it went out, all you had to do was replace the tube inside, the little their tuners or what. I forgot what they were called. I forgot what they were called, but tube TVs, they ran much more differently. You would click on, you would hear this little pop sound when you click on the TV, and it was just it was just all around a different feeling, of watching television in your home. And it was very immaculate. I love it. I grew up on tube TVs, I grew up on that shit. And I'm 38 years old, I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm part of that modern group where I'm like, yeah, I'm playing like video games that are modernized, or watching all these new movies, or listening. Well, I don't listen to some new music, because some of the music today is garbage. I just stick with what I listen to, what I grew up with, especially in like the 90s or the early 2000s. But when I watch a movie like this, and the theme and style of it, I can get with it. I can get with the theme of this movie, because I this is what I grew up with, coming from the late, mid to late 80s, I watched a lot of stuff, and especially like stuff that came out in the 70s. This is stuff that it's relaxing. It's very relaxing. Like, when I get in that age where I'm like, if I want to sit on the couch and I want to watch something, whether it's a comedy or horror or whatever, I wanted to have that nostalgic feel because that's the kind of person I am. I'm very nostalgic. I'm very old school. And when I see movies like this is the kind of stuff that I love. You know, Late Night with the Devil. Like I said, this movie actually came out in 2023. This came out last year at SXWX. So this came out over a year ago. And this was, you know, one of those independent films. It's an independent film that was it was distributed by IFC Films. But then it comes out this past April 11th in Australia. It hit March 22nd in theaters in the United States. Now, I didn't get the time or the chance to go out to the theater and see it. I waited until it came to Shudder. Shudder is another one of those streaming platforms, one of those streaming apps, and it's very, very particular. Some smart TVs have the app, and a lot of them don't. Like, I have an LG television. Does not have the Shudder app, but I can watch Shudder on a web browser. I can watch the app on my phone. I can watch it on a game console. So wherever you can find Shudder, it's $6.99 a month. Nothing but horror movies on there. And it doesn't have every single horror movie. You know, it's a small app, but you do get some really good movies on there. So you get some really good gems on there that really terrify you or leave a mark. And this is one of those movies that definitely does it. So if you don't have the time to go out to the movies, if you don't have $10-15 to go to a movie to see this film, get Shudder. If you're able to download the Shudder app and do a month subscription, $6.99, you can find this movie on there. Definitely check it out and watch it. So this movie was written, directed, and edited by Colin and Cameron Kames. I don't know who the fuck they are, but this movie is like an all-star cast of what I like to call nobodies, you know, people that I don't know. That, well, one person that I do recognize, and that is the main star. His name is David Dastmalchian. I hope I pronounced his name right. He was in quite a few movies. Apparently, he was in The Dark Knight. Let me go back. Oh, yeah, his first appearance was in the movie The Dark Knight, and then he was in other movies such as Saving Lincoln. Never heard of that. Oh, he was in the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. I'm wondering how James Roth was able to get him in there. He was in the movie Ant-Man, Blade Runner 2049, Jay and Silent Bob reboot as a cameo. He was in the Suicide... Oh, that's right. He was Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad, the new Suicide Squad. Okay. So if you guys seen the new Suicide Squad movie, then you know who I'm talking about. You know, he is Polka Dot. He was a Polka Dot Man in there. But he was also in movies. He was in, what is this? The Boogeyman that came out last year, that was a flop. I'm sorry to say that movie was a flop. I did not care about that. But he was also in the, I guess it was the Oscar nominated or Oscar winner Oppenheimer. He was in that movie as well. So, yeah. So, David Dastmalchian, along with a few others, they star in this movie. And like I said, this is like a found footage based movie, and it takes place in a television television station. So the prologue for the movie, the prologue is framed as a documentary, and I love movies like this when they're found footage and they're filmed like they're documentaries, like the Blair Witch Project. It was filmed like a documentary in a sense. And how many people believe that the movie was real? That those three actors, that they actually did film that footage in Maryland, and they ended up disappearing, only to find out that they were in public after the movie came out, and everybody's like, what the fuck? How are they still alive? How did they survive that? It was a found footage movie. It was fake. But what I love about it is movies like the Blair Witch Project have a very strong sense of being believable. And it had that strong effect on people, where people actually believe that, you know, things like that happen to actual people who filmed movies like that. You know, it was... You know, it really took people, you know, just, it had them. It had them good. You know, for people who sit there and say that the Blair Witch Project, it was real, that there's an actual witch out there in the woods somewhere in Burtonsville, Maryland, and for people to flock to those woods to check it out and all, if it had that strong effect, you know how good of a movie that was. And that's what I love about certain movies like this, when it's filmed in a documentary style and it feels real, and it just has so much to it that gives it that feeling like something's odd about this movie, and I like it. So this movie, the film's prologue, is framed as a documentary investigating an unexplained event that occurred on the night of Halloween 1977 during the live broadcast of the 6th season episode of this successful variety late night talk show called Night Owls with Jack Delroy. And it said it was competing for ratings with the Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. So Johnny Carson is a big aforementioned name in this film. Now, when I heard about this movie coming out, now mind you, this movie's been out for a year already, and it had just hit the United States just last month. Well, March, depending on when you're watching this podcast. When it hit March 2024, okay, I only seen bits and pieces. I've seen like little snippets here or there on social media or YouTube, and people are talking about Night Owls, and I'm thinking, was this an actual show back in the 70s? And I'm looking it up. I'm looking for it. Like, I'm so interested in it because there was a scene in the movie where somebody's performing like an exorcism or something, and something happens, and I'm like, holy shit, did this actually happen? And I'm looking for it, but there's nothing on that talks about it. There's nothing on the topic or there's never a show, there was never a talk show called Night Owls. So I'm like, it must be a movie. But it's something that really hooked me. You know, when you throw out little bits and pieces like that of a movie that's getting ready to come out, and you actually hook somebody into it, and you're like, oh my god, I got to see this movie. That's how good of a grip this movie had on people to actually draw them into wanting to see this movie. And then when the trailer came out, I was like, I gotta see it. I have to see this movie. This is my kind of movie right here, you know? So, going through the synopsis, and I know I really don't do a whole lot of, talking about the plot of the movie, but I gotta go into it just a little bit to give you guys a little bit of what this movie is. So, through his celebrity connections, Night Owls host Jack Delroy makes regular visits to the Grove, as it's called, an elite California camp for rich and powerful men. Sometime later, his wife Madeline dies of cancer, and her death has a major effect on Jack as Night Owls halts his production. So, for the first 5 minutes, you get a history. You learn the history of this guy who's a talk show host. And his show is taken off. It was phenomenal, for the first 5 seasons. And then, something happens. His wife dies, and it has an effect on him very much. But then he ultimately returns. And this is around the time where the ratings of the show were going downhill. And in order to boost the show's ratings, he decides to do a special episode, which is occult themed, on Halloween night. And then he has special guests on the show, which include self-proclaimed psychic and medium Christo, skeptic and former magician Carmichael Haig, parapsychologist author, June Ross Mitchell, and her latest subject, Lily Diabo. Now, during the podcast, so the whole thing is set up as a television show, like an hour television show. Now, the movie is only a little around an hour and a half, which is usually a good length for a horror movie, hour and a half, something like that. So, the talk show host, Jack Delroy, he's already kind of a skeptic of the whole thing. He thinks it's all one big show. So he brings these people on. He's interviewing them. You know, he's giving them each a chance. You know, he first talks to Christo, who is a psychic and medium. But then, you know, like he talks to some of the members of the audience. And it's not, and you know, it's not even really a setup. It's not a setup. This guy is legit. But then, you know, like he starts hearing voices from, you know, backstage. Something continues to happen. He knows something is very wrong. And then something happens to this person. Something happens to Christo to where he has to leave in an ambulance. You know, we'll leave it at that. He has to leave in an ambulance. But then, you know, he talks to this former magician who's also a skeptic of the paranormal. And this guy, he is the asshole of the movie. When you got a movie like this, you know, you always got to have that one person who's the asshole, no matter what it is. But then, you know, like toward the end, he changes his mind about things. You know, he changes his whole, what the hell you call it? You know, he changes his demeanor, you know, where it's like he's not skeptic about it anymore. It's like, you know, he sees it before his eyes. So the entire theme of this show is he brings on a longtime friend of his who's a parapsychologist named June. And she wrote a book talking about her latest subject. That you know, this young girl, this young teenager named Lily, who she's taken in, who is said to have been, who is said to be possessed by a demon that she can only conjure up at certain times that she's able to control. This is somebody who I think was abused by a cultist group or so. I forgot what it was. I forgot what it was. It's been a little bit since I watched it. But, you know, she takes this young girl and she trains her. She kind of, you know, she raises her in a sense, you know, like she's her daughter. And she helps her learn to control this demon, you know, not let it out of its bottle, you know, so to say. So the whole interview, you know, they're having a back and forth, you know, they're you know, trying to get this girl, even the audience is like, hey, we want to see an exorcism. We want to talk, you know, not really an exorcism, but they want to see this girl, you know, conjure up the spirit on the television show, which ends up happening, of course. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that go on. And you got this guy, this asshole, the skeptic. He's trying to tell people at home, he's trying to tell the audience, say, look, this is all smoke and mirrors. I'll show you this. I'll show you that. There's even a scene where not only does he decept the audience in the movie itself, but it's almost like he decepts you, the viewer, as if you're like, wait a minute, that is pretty disturbing scene. But then when you see it being played back in the movie, you see something completely different. And even the talk show host, even Jack is like, wait a minute, this is not what I saw. But that's very weird. That's very odd, you know? So even I'm sitting there looking, I was like, man, did the movie just play me? Did the movie just have a moment where it just played me? Where with this grotesque scene? And it was awesome. It was really cool. Like, you know, to have a movie like this, okay. Some people probably look at it as like, it started out kind of dull and boring, but it's like you have to muddle through certain scenes until you get to the meat and potatoes, as I want to say, of the movie. You know, and I think with a lot of movies like this, people will go into them and they're like, it starts out boring. I don't want to watch. That's like found footage. You know, it's a found footage movie. That's like when you watch a movie with a group of people wanting to go into a haunted place and they're, you know, talking about prepping their cameras and all their equipment and stuff, and then talking to people in the town where they're like, oh, let me get your background information on, oh, what's the history of this town? What's the history of this and that? And it's all within like the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie, right? You know, and that's something that people look at and they're like, it's a turn off. I don't like it. But here's the thing. I tell people, when you watch movies like that, go straight into it. Even if it seems boring to you, if it's something that you're like, it's not my thing, go into it. just go into it with an open mind. You know, that's all I would say. Just go into it with an open mind. Just muddle through it. Pay attention to it. You know, it may seem boring, but trust me, movies like this, when it has a slow start to it, picks up either pretty fast, or when it does pick up, it hits you hard, and you're like, oh my god, like that's the kind of that is the kind of sensibility that I can get from this movie. And I'm not going to spoil the ending for you guys. I'm not going to go more into depth with this movie, but let's just say, you know, it's a television show. The guy's trying to get the ratings back up through the roof. He's competing with Johnny Carson. So it's like, okay, we're going to have this show on Halloween night. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And a lot of things end up happening within the show, within the show. People do get affected. It is horrific. There is a lot of psychological value to it, I want to say. But just the overall tone of the movie is disturbing. If you've ever watched found footage horror movies, then you probably know what to expect. But especially if it's done in a style where it's like a documentary documentary movie, then I can say you're in for a good treat. You're in for a treat. Now, the movie was shot in Melbourne, Australia. The film utilizes practical special effects, including puppetry, along with digital visual effects. The film also uses, AI art, artificial intelligence art, although the directors later said that only 3 images were AI generated. Now, I want to go out on a limb and say this. You know, I know artificial intelligence is starting to become a big thing now. The AI system, you know, the AI mechanic, and people are utilizing it with their computers, with their cell phones, tablets, whatever. Look, watch The Terminator. That's all I gotta say, because if we let AI get to the point where it's self-aware and becomes more smarter than humans, we're all screwed, people. Just take it at that. Now, when the movie released, it had a world premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival, which is SXSW, March 10th, 2023, in Austin, Texas, where it played as part of the festival's Midnighters section. That same month, horror author Stephen King was provided with an advanced screener of the film and tweeted, "It's absolutely brilliant. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. Your results may vary as they say, but I urge you to watch it when you can." Now, I don't care for Stephen King's politics. He's one of those Biden dick writers, so to say. That's what Stephen King is. Now, a friend of mine, you know, a member of the channel, Tom, he has told me, and it makes a lot of sense. It does. You know, he looks at it as like everybody has their views on politics. He doesn't let their political views ruin the fact that, let's say, Robert De Niro, okay, even though he has some very salty political statements, you know, he's very political in certain things, he's very salty about it, and you may not care for it, but maybe Robert De Niro has a line of good movies under his belt, and good acting roles under his belt. So you can like their acting, you can like their bodies of work, their movies, but when it comes to their politics, it's a completely different issue. Now, I will say, like, Stephen King, yeah, he's like Rob Reiner, you know, he doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. But I will say, like, I do agree with his comment. And you know, Stephen King, he's one of those masters of horror out there, like Clive Barker and such. So when Stephen King says that the movie is brilliant and he couldn't take his eyes off it, that's how I am. I like to pay attention to good movies, especially good horror movies. And Stephen King says that, I definitely agree. And I will say this, you know, this movie, definitely check it out. You know, you can't take your eyes off it. Even if you look at these kind of movies, it's like, it's dull and boring. You know, it goes to the next scene where it's like, I don't care about that. Pay attention to every detail. It all adds up. The movie in October 2023, IFC and Shudder acquired the distribution rights from North America, United Kingdom, and Ireland. And like I said, this past couple months, April, March, whenever you're watching it, the movie was released on Shudder, so you guys should really check it out. Right now, and I'm not a big fan of Rotten Tomatoes because they do give some poor ratings and poor critic responses to certain good movies. But Rotten Tomatoes did give this movie a 97%, which is a really good rating for a movie like this. It's got an average rating of 7.2 out of 10. The website consensus reads that it is delightfully dark. Late Night with the Devil proves possession horror isn't played out and serves as an outstanding showcase for David Dastmalchian. Let's see what else. Okay, Variety's Dennis Harvey commented that the film's production design and technical aspects, as well as the performances from the cast, and wrote that the film's mix of vintage me-decade showbiz cheese and exorcisty demonic doings is distinctive, not to mention deftly handled by the Kames brothers as both writers and directors. So this movie, it's got a lot of good ratings to it, especially with the use of artificial intelligence. I want to go into this because I feel like CG is now out. Like, even though a lot of movies are using CG still, I feel like the use of artificial intelligence is going to be the next thing when it comes to movies. It's like, it's not going to be CG, it's going to be artificial intelligence. Like, AI is like so smart right now. You can, like, how many images of certain actors and actresses are on the internet that you can definitely tell they're not real, but they're so close to real. They're not CG, they're artificially generated. So in the week leading up to the film's release, some reviewers pointed out that the use of AI-generated art in several of the scenes, which were not presented in the version screened at SXSW, and called for a boycott of the movie. In response to the controversy, directors Cameron and Colin Kames said, in conjunction with their amazing graphics and production design team, all of whom worked tirelessly to give us this film the 70s aesthetic we had always imagined. We experimented with AI and 3 still images, which we edited further and ultimately appear as very brief interstitials in the film. So I think that the Kane brothers said it really well, and I stand by what they said, and I completely stand by this movie as a thoroughly original piece of work that so many hours went into this incredible artistic craftsmanship to be set in this world. So it is a good conversation to have. It's an important conversation. We got to have it. And that was stated by the star David Dastmalchian. And that's a really good statement. Now, I didn't even know that this movie used AI, artificial intelligence generated images to give it a 70s feel. Because usually a lot of movies, you can just, there's a lot of different, like the art style. Anybody can come up with that art style. And it's a lot of work and all, but yeah, anybody can make a 70s themed movie or TV show. But now I guess they figure, the use of AI, it's much easier than CG. Because with CG, yeah, it's still a little bit of work. You got to use a computer to generate those kind of graphics and all. But with artificial intelligence, there's really no work involved. All you got to do is just type into a system and say, okay, 70 theme television show or late night talk show theme, and boom, you got it. So artificial intelligence, like I said, there's really not a whole lot of input that you can interact with. You can just sit there and type something in, and boom, you got it. That's what AI is. So I think, like, with movies like this, you take out the computer generated. I forgot what it's called. It's CGI. Basically, CGI. I'm stumbling on my words. If you take out CGI, which does require a lot of time and patience and people working with computers, implement AI, the AI does everything for you. And I think that's where movies are going to go from here on out. It's not going to be too much CG. It's going to be AI. It's almost like you're not going to be able to tell if it's computer generated or if it's real. And I think that's where the cinema is going to go. And I think they will make a very important piece to another podcast of ours, which we will probably cover. So what do I got to say? What are my ratings for this movie? After watching it, I will say, like, as a fan of this type of horror genre, the found footage genre with these type of movies, this was a very interesting piece, a very integral piece of history that I'm glad to be part of. I'm glad to have seen this movie. This movie, it really interests me heavily. It really interests me. I thought it was actually based on an actual talk show from the 1970s. That's how good it looks. That's how convincing this movie was. When you saw the trailer, when you saw little snippets on like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever. That's how convincing this movie was. And especially, like, with the way the poster is, like, you look at the poster, like, that's the kind of poster that you would see from a movie in the 1970s or the 80s. That's pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure probably an AI, did that. Man, that's probably an AI generated image right there. But, it's so cool. And like I said, AI is going to probably take over humanity, in the future. We're all going to be doomed anyway. So what's the big deal? Let's enjoy, for the last moments that we have, the last days or the last years that we got on this planet to enjoy something like that, But it definitely does. It definitely, it's a definitely really good piece of cinema. And I really did enjoy it. It's got a good amount of scares. It definitely reels you in. It really reels you in, with the mystery, the concept, where you're like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And it's like, something's going to happen, but you don't know when it's going to happen, and you don't know if it's going to happen. That's what I like about movies like this. It leaves you wondering. It leaves you hanging. It's not like a regular horror movie where it's like, what's going to happen. You just don't know when, but then when it happens, you're like, yep, I knew it. No, this movie has you on the edge of your seat. That's one of those type of movies. It has you on the edge of the seat where you're also wanting more. I was expecting a little bit more, but then, like I said, it's an hour and a half long. You're not going to get a whole lot, but it definitely delivers a good bit. And I will say, Late Night with the Devil, I give it a good 10 out of 10. I give this movie a 10 out of 10. If you guys have Shudder, or if you don't have Shudder, get a subscription to it and check out this movie, Late Night with the Devil. It is a really good piece of cinema right now for 2024. And I feel like, there's going to be a lot of good horror movies that are coming out, this year. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, I didn't care for it. It's not that great. And like, well, there are some audiences out there that do enjoy stuff like this. If you don't like it, that's you. All right. Just know that there are people who do like this kind of stuff. Even if you don't like it, just move on with life. That's all I can say. Like, watch what you like, stay away from what you don't like, but don't ruin it for anybody else, because everybody has a different taste in movies. And that's all I got for today's episode of Cinemacast, guys. Thank you for joining me today. Did you see this movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let us know down in the comments section, guys. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Also follow us on our gaming streaming sites on Twitch and Kick. Follow us on our social media on Twitter at MikeCAWAN. Also, if you guys are on Discord, click that link and join us on Discord for many more updates, gameplay clips, anything of that nature. And, if you're the talks of the town, bring it, That's all I got to say. Before we end today's show, I do want to talk about our sponsor real quick, which is Dubby Energy Blend Drink. If you guys are into drinking energy drinks, Dubby is one that is sponsored by gamers and streamers all around. You can go to their website, dubby.gg, and check out the different flavors that they got, the different products that they got. If you do decide to purchase something on their website, Use promo code ARROW, WAN. You guys will save 10% on those products. Also, check out our merch store. Link for that is down below. Also, if you guys want to buy any of our merch from the store, use promo code ARROW, ENT. You guys will save 15% on your purchase over there. Anyway, guys, I am out of here. Thank you for joining me today. And until next time, we'll catch you right back here at the cinema.